Hello and welcome to a tutorial flight for the Maddog MD80 aircraft. Now last time I already made a tutorial on how to start the engines. So here's the thing. I'm going to try and go a little fast with trying to get the panel set up, but this is still going to take probably about 7-9 minutes. I'm also doing some extra things such as doing a fire test, doing the various system tests for the aircraft and whatnot. So I think for the most part I'm going to stay quiet for part of the video until I get to about the engine start and towards taxi, and then we'll go to takeoff. This flight in particular will be a full flight. It'll be from beginning to end. This flight is from DFW Airport to El Paso, so this is not a very long flight at all, probably about an hour and a half in a real world setting. So for now, I'm going to stay a little quiet, and I will come back by the time we get to a point where I need to talk. I will also go about going through top of descent and a little bit on the landing procedure, since I'll explain more later.
Headwind, shear, headwind, shear, headwind, shear. Tailwind, shear, tailwind, shear, tailwind, shear.
Glide slope. Pull up. Terrain, terrain. Pull up.
PA and emergency light test.
Emergency light's okay.
As a fair note, during that particular test, you need to hold that particular button for the duration of the test until you see the PFD display actually returns to normal. That's just a fair note for anyone who wonders.
TCAS system test okay.
Dog. Dog. Overspeed. Overspeed.
Okay, and a little bit by the time I get to the preference initialization page, some people may actually wonder on how to properly set up the FMC, and I didn't get this the first time myself. I had to look at the tutorial flight for this. But in a few moments, I do my best to show what to do about entering the fuel and whatnot. And if you have to pause the video, feel free and look over the area again, and that's no problem. Essentially what you need to do is in the lower right of the panel where the fuel quantity is, to get the zero fuel weight, you'll need to push the button on the right in the center and memorize the fuel, or at least the zero fuel weight. Once you do that, you enter it in the FMC and you in the correct position, and then to get the fuel quantity, you use the field right above it, and you have to use the first 3 digits. The first 2, a decimal, and then another digit. You can use either the /A or /N. I'm not entirely sure which does what. If anyone could explain that to me, please do. I've always wondered about what that actually means. Other than that, once you get it correctly configured, and by the time you get to the V1, VR, V2 speeds, it should say pre-flight status complete. If it does not, go back into the preference initialization page, double check your settings, and once you do that, it should be complete. If you do have any questions, feel free to ask. I will do my best to try and answer your questions. If any of you may be wondering as to what flight plan I'm using, I'm on a site called flightaware.com that you can use for a recent IFR analysis, and real-world pilots will log their flights, and you can use FlightAware to get these kinds of information as to VOR, waypoints and whatnot, and even the SIDS and stars. That's usually my main resource that I use for getting these type of flight plans. These will vary from day to day depending on the weather, because weather has a huge impact on what runway will be used for landing and departing. So if you'd like to follow this flight line by line, go ahead. Just note that weather conditions, as I'm using a third-party add-on called ActiveSky for the real-world weather, so your results may end up slightly different depending on if you're using the ATC like I am. If you are, you may end up getting a different runway than I am landing on, but I tend to ignore the ATC sometimes. I just land depending on what I have on the FMC, but that's just how I fly. But it's a fair note. I do not provide exactly which flight path I'm using, but if you want to use it, pause the video, take notes of the waypoints that I'm using, and you can copy from there. Okay, just to get this out of the way beforehand, in a few moments you'll hear various flight attendant
Yes, sir.
and first officer recordings. These are provided default for the MD80 from Maddog. And so if you're going to ask me about this, I just now answered your questions for this, so do not ask me. I will ignore those questions if you ask me. I already said it right here, right now, so don't ask. Now, like in my last video, I already went through the steps on doing engine startup, so I'm also doing some extra things in here
Yes, sir.
since I'm using more of the features of the MD80.
Verified brake release.
The pushback and whatnot, because DFW and El Paso airports are actually not AES compatible. That's usually the add-on that you will see in most of my flight sim videos. But if I don't, these are freeware sceneries that I'm using for a couple of airports that I found on avsim.com. You can find them on there, just do a search for the scenery. I will provide the ICAO codes for them, and you can search the avsim website and the file library for those particular sceneries. And you can pretty much find the exact ones that I'm using. The ones that are AES compatible, however, are payware sceneries. Do not ask me for those. You will have to buy them yourself. And in just a moment, you'll see that I kind of got myself lined up almost perfectly on the taxiway. This is pure guesswork. I just guess sometimes depending on the airport and the distance. But earlier on, when I did a flight similar to this a few days before, I overshot the taxiway a little bit in the pushbacks, so I learned that for this video so that way I can get it a little more spot on, as you will see. Anyway, this pretty much concludes the first video. There's going to be one, maybe two more, but I'm hoping for just one more. That will show from takeoff to top of descent, and then we get to the actual landing part. I will explain more of the landing in that video at the end. Anyway, I hope you will enjoy this video and this couple of tutorials. I believe this will actually be the first to introduce a full flight tutorial for the MD80, because all other videos I looked at were either in a foreign language or I could not understand. I've tried calling for help, but no one came up to me, so I was on my own. And here I am. Well, I will see you in the next video. And that's pretty much it.